Across disparate lives and distant locales, a persistent strangeness asserts itself. Welcome to the Charon Files. The stories you are about to hear are testimonies from living witnesses of what moves beyond understanding, of what refuses to be explained. Each of them stood at the edge of what is known and looked into what lies beyond it. My name is Charon, Ferryman of the Dead, the one who waits at that edge. What follows is what they brought back. May they prepare you for your own future encounters. The vast archive of human experience holds countless testimonies, where the familiar landscape of existence gives way to the profoundly inexplicable. These are moments when the very fabric of reality seems to thin, allowing glimpses into other states of being, or intrusions from forces beyond comprehension. Whether it is an unseen presence asserting its undeniable claim, a journey through dimensions beyond mortal grasp, or an unsettling sound echoing in the stillness of the wild, these accounts reveal the fragile nature of what we consider solid and known. They are records of perception altered, of senses overwhelmed, and of the chilling realization that not all can be explained by the natural world. As we learned in episode 12, Hannah found herself face to face with a tall, thin, black creature possessing white, beady eyes, asserting its undeniable presence. Tonight, Adam, in Winchester Mystery House, San Jose, California, recounts a chilling encounter in his newly renovated home.
Last night, my dad and I moved all of our belongings downstairs into the newly renovated area of our house where we'll be living. It was a big change, and after moving everything, I went to my room, turned off the lights, and turned my fan on. For context, when I was in my early 20s, my relationship with my dad has always been complicated. We fought a lot over the years, and I've made mistakes growing up that I regret, but we've still always considered ourselves close. Lately, I've just been wanting a way out of the situation I'm in, to make money, become independent, and actually start building my own life. Here's where things got weird. After I laid down, I started feeling really uneasy. The feeling was so intense that it stuck with me. It felt like something was watching me. The room felt wrong, almost like there was a presence there. My fan was blowing, and for some reason it felt like someone was standing in front of it. I had this overwhelming feeling like something was telling me to get out. I know how it sounds, but it genuinely freaked me out. I ended up pulling the blanket over my head for a moment because I felt so uncomfortable. Then, a moment later, something hit my window. I tried to brush it off and tell myself I was just overthinking because I was tired and in a new environment. And like I heard my dad talking about me. Upstairs outside I had my window and we are in our situation and like just hating on me deeply, like really hurtful things I don't really want to disclose. But it was dark and hurtful. The moment I confronted him, I stepped outside. Before I could say anything, he is on his feet, saying, "Did you feel that?" Basically, at the same time I'm feeling all of this, he says that. It makes the situation feel unreal. It just doesn't feel normal. It felt dark and hurtful. It's weird. But the feeling hasn't left me. I'm wondering if this was just my mind playing tricks on me because of the stress and moving, or if there's something else going on.
Episode 3 introduced us to Sarah, who detailed a vivid dream or alternate reality where the world shifted, and she became overwhelmed by the unfiltered emotions of everyone around her. Andrew in Alcatraz Island, California, shares his testimony of experiencing other dimensions after death.
I've died twice, and I'll tell you what I've experienced. It's very hard to describe in three-dimensional language, so bear with me and understand that it'll sound crazy. But it's true, at least it's my version of the reality, that I saw after death, each time. I could still conceptualize and somewhat measure time, but I wasn't fully separated from our dimension yet, so that may be why. Time moves a lot. This isn't the right word, but it's the only one that I have. Faster in the fourth dimension. What could be seconds on Earth is hundreds of thousands of years there, which also isn't right, but there are no other words for it. I travel through this sort of tunnel. Try to think of it as like a wormhole, but it wasn't actually a tunnel, but like some sort of vessel, I think, or like some way to grant passage to the next dimension. I traveled for a few hundred years. I saw my life, of course. And then I learned the language of the universe. I saw runes and sacred geometry symbols on the walls of the tunnel, and over those few hundred years it felt like my capacity to understand the universe had greatly expanded. I was completely at peace when I reached the door. Now, what I originally saw freaked me out because I couldn't understand it, so it changed to a big wooden door with a handle very quickly so that I could grasp what I was seeing. I don't know if I willed it to change or something else did maybe, or maybe the dimension itself adjusted to my level of understanding. I don't know, but it was a door and that I could grasp. I could still hear my baby's cries for me throughout this, as if I was still partially on Earth. For context, I died on the table during 2 emergency C-sections twice, and then they were able to bring me back each time. I am no longer allowed to have kids. Those cries are what kept me from opening the door. I felt something gently inviting me, but it wasn't urgent and didn't force me. I somehow knew that I had all the time in my universe to make a decision if I needed it. I floated there for hundreds of thousands of years, considering my options. It felt like a moment, but there wasn't any urgency, and I somehow knew that it had been longer. I opened the door, but didn't go through it. Something or someone in and around me. The more accurate description is that whatever it was all of us and more, yet none of us at the same time. And it wasn't necessarily a being, and it wasn't alive, but it wasn't unalive or dead either. It just didn't exist in the same way that we exist. It didn't know mortality, and simply always has been and always will be. It isn't a right descriptor either, but it isn't a they either, so I don't know how to describe it in 3-dimensional terms, sadly. Told me not to go through the door unless I was absolutely sure that I did not want to return to where I came from in the same way that I was existing before. So I sat there and looked through the door to decide, and what I saw, holy fuck, what I saw is indescribable. It was, I call it a tree, but it wasn't that, but it reminds me kind of the tree of life. Our trees are an extension of whatever the fuck this is, but it was beautiful. It literally gives me a headache to picture it in my mind, but I can remember it as if I'm still there. I wanted to go through that door so freaking badly, but all I could think about was leaving my baby behind. So I just sat there for hundreds of thousands of years. I learned everything I could just from peering through that door, and there's so much that we don't know and couldn't even begin to imagine or conceptualize. Finally, I decided that I wasn't ready, and whatever or whomever that was told me to come back when I was ready, but they or it didn't really speak or communicate. I just knew what they or it wanted to say to me, if that makes sense. Suddenly, I was back in my body and everything hurt, and it was like I was born again. It really threw me off to be thrust back into a mortal existence and a body of flesh. I feel like one of those bagged tents where you unpack them, but can't get them back in the bag just right, so you just shove it all in the bag and hope that it stays in and doesn't break. For a few weeks after each time, I kept having out-of-body experiences and was just stuck between the 2 dimensions, I think. My dreams were of that dimension, and I met the pale-faced man. Both when I was dead, he was in another form, and I still chat with him in my dreams sometimes. He's always going on about wanting me to take some sort of key, and I have this sinking feeling that there's no turning back once I take it. And he's tried to explain what it's for, but I can't grasp it unless I actually take the key, so I don't know if I ever will take it in this lifetime. But those weren't the only weird things that happened after I came back. I felt these vibrations off of everything and everyone. Everything and everyone was suddenly alive in a way that I didn't know they could be. I could feel what plants and animals were feeling and needing. I could feel the intense emotions of others. I could feel when someone else had been to or was close to going to the 4th dimension. This went on for months the first time, and I honestly feel it even more strongly this time. I don't know if it'll fade like it did the last time, but I kind of don't want it to. Do you know what it's like to put your bare feet in the dirt and feel the earth breathing beneath you? Do you know what it's like to truly speak to a tree? Would you ever give that up after gaining that ability? I honestly think that we all have that ability, but actively choose not to unlock it. I think that the concept of it scares us without even realizing it. Most of all, I feel that dimension calling me every day, and I want to go to it so bad and learn everything. I want to hold on to what I call the knowing. I want to take the key, and I want to go through that door. Also, I don't think that the key is to that door, because I would have understood that. It's something else. But anyways, I want it all, but I also don't want to give up my mortality yet. It's a special gift that a select few get to experience. I want to see my children grow up, and I want to feel what it's like to be old. I want to see where the world will go from this lens, if that makes sense. It's such a complex feeling to describe. It's as if I have one foot in each place. I feel so alone in this. No one can understand, and I sound crazy every time I try to explain what I've experienced.
Returning briefly to episode 2, David recounted an encounter on his family's land where a decaying animal followed him and his mother's friend, exhibiting unnatural behavior. Henry, in Stoll, Kansas, recalls a profoundly unsettling sound during a solo camping trip.
This experience happened when I was wild camping on my own in a forest in Wales. It was April or May 2013 or 2014. The weather was unseasonably good, and this was the second of 3 nights I'd planned for my trip, although it ended up being the last. The first night and second day had been great. I got a lovely long hike in, followed by a pub lunch. I'd driven back to the area I was staying and was now back at my tent. I settled down for the night, read a book, had some beers, and went to sleep. It was probably between 11 p.m. and midnight. I was just in that state where you're semi-conscious, about to drift off, but haven't quite yet. I slowly became aware of a melodic noise somewhere outside the tent. It didn't sound that close, maybe within 50 feet. It sounded like a person perfectly humming a tune. After listening for a couple of minutes, it was definitely somebody humming. It sounded like a professional singer, perfectly in tune, no voice breaks or falters at all. I can't remember whether it sounded like a man or a woman. At this point, I'm shitting myself because it's just incredibly creepy, like something from a horror film. I hadn't left my tent, and the humming hadn't gotten any louder. It just stayed a distant background noise. I didn't know what to do, but knew I couldn't just stay there forever, so I mustered the courage to open my tent as slowly and quietly as I could to see if I could see anything or tell where the noise was coming from. Within 5 seconds of me poking my head out of the tent, the humming stopped. It didn't fade away or anything. It just stopped dead, as if someone had pressed pause on a recording. I'm still very on edge, but at the time I assumed it was just what it was. Someone playing a prank on solo campers with an audio recording. I literally couldn't think of any other explanation. Based on that assumption, I shouted something like, "You're not funny, fuck off." That made me feel a bit better, because it felt like I'd addressed the issue. I let that hang in the air for like 10 more seconds whilst my head was still poking out of the tent, and it stayed quiet. I was kind of satisfied by this point, so I began moving back in. As I was reaching for the tent zipper though, the humming started again. Same tune, but much louder, much closer, and from the completely opposite direction. My heart completely sinks, because there was no way someone could have moved from the first source of the noise to the second without me seeing or hearing something. It was literally impossible. It was perfectly quiet in the woods, not even any breeze against the leaves. And yeah, it was dark, but I could still see short distances thanks to the moonlight. In the back of my mind though, my subconscious was clearly working overtime trying to rationalize this, and I guess I must have assumed that there were multiple pranksters out there with multiple audio recordings. I can't exactly remember what my thought process was at this point, because it's truthfully all a blur. But for one reason or another, I stormed angrily out of the tent towards the now quite loud sound. It sounded as if the person humming was within like 10 feet of the tent. I got up out of the tent, turned towards the noise, ready to scream at the perpetrator, or even attack if necessary. That's when I see this humanoid figure silhouetted against the tree line, maybe 15 feet away from me. My best description of it is this. It was a large, thin figure that was shaped like a human, but way too tall and proportioned all wrong. It was huge. I would guess over 7 feet. Its limbs were unnaturally long, like it had been stretched out in all directions. Its head appeared very small and rounded. I think the figure was gray in color, but I can't be 100% sure because of the poor visibility. I couldn't make out much of its face at all. It just seemed to be shrouded in shadow. I definitely didn't notice any features like eyes, mouth, or nose. It was standing quite still, facing directly towards me. I say quite still, because there was some movement, in the same way that a person or animal would sway back and forth, or make some minor body movements if they were standing up. This was a real, living thing. I know that for a fact. Not an illusion, not a prop or prank. This thing was standing right in front of me and was aware of my presence. I'm literally paralyzed by fear at this point. I have never felt anything like it before or since. Just a primal terror which has left me cold, shaking, just standing there quite literally unable to move. I distinctly remember thinking that I needed to get away, but I could not physically move my body. It was the most terrified I have ever been. As I first laid eyes on this creature, the humming stopped and immediately it started humming again. But not a song. It started softly singing my name, in what sounded like my voice. That sounds fucking ridiculous, I know, but I swear that's how I remember it. Even though it was singing in my voice though, it didn't sound right. The syllables were just off, as though a non-human had heard speech once, and was trying to mimic it for the first time, poorly. This can't have gone on for more than about 10 seconds, but it felt like forever. Me standing there, this creature standing, motionless and singing my name. At some point though, every cell in my body just switched, and I managed to turn and run as fast as I ever have in the opposite direction. For maybe 2 minutes, I was literally sprinting through the woods in just my socks and pajamas, with absolutely no other thought in my mind other than putting distance between myself and that thing. I had no idea which direction I was going, or how I'd make it back to my tent. When I eventually stopped, I just leaned against this tree, panting for ages. The forest was still completely silent. I must have stayed by that tree for about 2 hours, waiting for my heart rate to settle, trying to calm down and decide what to do. I didn't want to go back to my tent. I was quite happy to leave all my stuff there, but I needed my phone and car keys to get home. I was several miles away from anywhere. I eventually made my way back slowly. It wasn't too hard to navigate back to my tent in those woods, because the tree distribution wasn't very dense. I also hadn't gone as far as I first feared. Once back at my tent, I grabbed just my phone and keys and went back to my car as fast as I was comfortable. I spent the rest of the night sitting in the back seat on my phone, shaking. I didn't even try to get any sleep. Once the sun was up, I managed to go back and pack my stuff up and left as quickly as I could. After that, I took a 2+ year break from solo camping, something I normally do every 3 to 4 months. So that's my experience. Make of it what you will. That has stayed with me ever since, and I know it always will. I don't know what was in the woods with me that night, but it has scarred me and transformed the way I think about supernatural experiences. If anyone has encountered anything similar to what I described, I'd be interested to hear.
These accounts reveal how easily the familiar can be breached, whether by an unseen presence, a journey beyond life, or an unnatural sound echoing in the dark, leaving only the chilling question of what else remains unseen. The names of the witnesses have been changed to maintain anonymity. If what you have heard tonight mirrors something you have experienced, leave your story in a comment below and we will include it in a future episode. Don't forget to subscribe. You wouldn't want to miss